We're back here on Jones and Company, and we're speaking today with Mr. Craig Flowers, and we're talking business now. Craig Flowers, you are a professional pilot by training, but you are best known in these times in the Bahamas as a businessman, aren't you?
Well, unfortunately, but so be it.
Yes, but you started as a businessman many years ago.
Yes, I have. I think this journey for myself, as it relates to business, was really, I have to attribute 99% of it to a dear friend of my own who has been an African, a multi-millionaire that befriended me and invited me to his empire in Switzerland. I spent many years in Geneva as a friend of one of the most wealthiest black Africans by the name of Nejmi El-Fituri. We were almost like brothers. He tutored, and he gave me, and I was able to sit in on board meetings where millions were being handled. In addition to the fact that while I worked for Libyan Arab Airlines, my responsibility, my budget, and certainly my expenses for the massive amount of work that I would have had being done by Air France on my maintenance programs for me, the enormous amount of hours and times and expenses that I have for Alitalia using their simulators there for time and expenses. I had a very large budget for training. And being responsible for that certainly laid the foundation for a business concept.
And you came back from Africa with sufficient money, I am told, to do a whole lot of things.
I've been fortunate, Wendell. I think that the 14 and a half years that I would have spent there was very rewarding to myself because, any young black man at the time with $4.5 to $5 million in the bank is a substantial amount of money to be had. But it was not so much the money as it was the ability to live amongst, to be with money. I think that is equally as important to be taken into consideration as we speak about wealth.
Mr. Flowers, some people don't know that your father gave you all a good bit of foundation, right?
Absolutely.
What role did that play in your business development?
How important it was for me to be able to manage my life was the role that my father. We may have used the resources of my dad evolution from being a truck driver delivering oil to be able to say that we have earned and built out a reputation in this country where tourists and others of the like and all of the entertainers and when you see my relationship with so many of them today, it's solely because of my father's business. And we had to pay our dues by working in the business. That was a part of the process. My dad had a lot of confidence in us. He trusted us. He gave us all the opportunities around the business. We knew everything. I knew the price of fish. I knew the price of a pound of lard. I knew the price of everything for our business. There was nothing that we would have purchased for the ongoing business. My eldest brother Arnold dealt mostly with the beverages, the liquor and the drinks, but I dealt mostly with the kitchen products. But he shared this responsibility with us to involve us in the business itself and to understand a cost and profit margins and these little things that we would have learned. But that was more of a life long teaching for me as to how best to manage my life. I really can say that it had a very, very important role in my life in growing up. But when it came to the business that I am in today to deal with millions, my dad don't have a clue. If he comes back here today and says, Craig, you have $1 million, you've got to take those people's money back where you got it from. And he will not believe that because that's just the times
Yeah.
in which we have. So to deal with millions today, it's a entirely different business approach. It will require a solid foundation, which we spoke of earlier, but I can assure you, Godfrey, the requirements to be a successful business person, in addition to being black, and deal with millions is a responsibility very few people is going to be successful with. Very few.
You were not a gambler. You were a professional pilot, and you were a businessman.
One minute. Let me 1 minute. 1 minute. He had the reputation around here as being an exceptional golfer and pool shooter.
Okay. Yeah, I
That's hustling.
I heard of your sportsmanship.
He could have been a pro golfer.
I heard about your sportsmanship.
There was a
in
margin
golf.
right there where I was deciding from school.
Yes. But go back. I want to go back to the point of introducing gaming here, because as a professional pilot slash businessman, you came back to the Bahamas, and in those days you saw the condition of the then numbers business in the Bahamas, and I believe that you made a decision to change it for the better. And I want you to speak to that.
Yeah, because Wendall, you have to fully appreciate my upbringing here was among my dad was a businessman with the Percy Munnings and the Walter Hutchins and the Keith and these were men who pioneered out to take on the responsibility of being small businessmen. To them at the time was great. Bodie with the bank. At that era, I was a part of growing up in it, so I knew all of the people that were making and shaking things over the hill. Anything happened over the hill, my dad was involved. My dad was a part of the money movements over the hill. So I was never excluded. I was always a part thereof. So when I came back home, things like what Percy Munnings was doing as far as gaming in the country, Cecil Gonzalez, and all of these things, these were games that was really entrenched in our culture over the hill. So with me growing up and being a part of, I'm a Southerner by way of sporting club. At the Southern Sporting Club, everything happens there. It's just a catalyst of all of the activities that we do over the hill. I grew up in that. I'm a part of that. I can't leave that. Today, I go back to the Southerners and sit down because this is where my roots are. This is where I'm from. I go to Grantstown and Farm Road, and I'm home. So when I came back from Africa, I really made a decision. I said to my then boss, Colonel Gaddafi, that I was giving some thought to completing my task here in Libya, and I was going back home. And he said to me, is that the real cause? Is there any other problem? What is it? Is it money? I said, sir, it could never be money, not the way you would have treated me. But I knew that my dad was not well, all right? And growing up the way I grew up, and Arnold and Cecil grew up, we were a team of four. Whenever one of us was not well, we could have told. And I knew from my conversations and speaking with him, because I know that there were times when I'm in Rome or I'm in Frankfurt or Geneva or other places, I had intentionally called my dad from these places only because I knew the time change was some 5-hour different, and I knew when he would be with his friends, with John Crawley and all of his friends, and I'd call and says, hey, what's up? He said, where you at? I said, I'm in Rome, Dad, or I'm in Paris. And he'll put me on the phone. Hey guys, I'm talking with Craig. He's in Paris. It was a give back to him for me. And when I hear the humor that we always shared starting to dissipate from our conversation, I knew something was not right. I came home, and of course, the biggest or the greatest, I guess, actor in the world was my dad. He will never let me see or feel or believe that he was not well. But I knew that there was something wrong, and it led to where he had stones in his kidneys. And it bothered me, and I wanted to come back home to be with him. And I started making decisions in Africa at the time to wrap up and to get people qualified over the next 2 years to replace me in Libya. And I would have conveyed that to my middle supervisor, Major Jalut at the time, and my other supervisor on consul, which was Bendago. They were very close to me in the higher ranks of the Libyan government, that they understood when I spoke about my challenges at home. So I started making this move to come back home. And I came back, and I sat with my dad, and I understood. And you know, we had probably the best 3.5 years of our life. We were able to go back and play and laugh and joke and kid and talk about the days. He tickles me to death, and all of the school and all of the doubts and all. We relived our entire journey for the 3.5 years before he would have passed. And I thought that it was the greatest thing that I could have done was to come back home.
He's certainly a hero, wasn't he?
Well, he was not just my hero. Wendall, you'd have to fully appreciate the fact that he had a choice to make when our mother died with 3 boys. He didn't have to stay to decide to take on the responsibility. He could have given us quite easily to our grandmother, Miss Bethel, up on the hill, Marion Bethel and Marcus Bethel, and they were dying. As a matter of fact, they came looking for us. He took the position at our early stage. I'm only 2 years old, I couldn't recall, but he took us and hit us with one of his relatives in South Andres. That's how come I knew Miss McKinsey. Miss McKinsey is Mrs. Penling's mother. All right, so Miss Margaret Penling, the Prime Minister's wife, mother lived right next to us in South Andres. So I grew up and when I came to my senses, my dad would have hit us and only brought us back to Nassau because it was time for school. And taking on these types of, because he didn't want us to go anywhere other than to be with him. And that relationship is where we started.
I want to fast forward to how you got
Into
the gaming platform going, because in the old days they threw numbers, through the bag. I don't know too much about it. I heard you talk about it before. Godfrey would probably know about throwing the numbers,
Throwing the ball.
Throwing the ball. But you moved this game beyond throwing the ball, and tell us why you did that.
I came back, and like I want to jump back on this horse of my dad, because we had a lot of properties that my dad would have had from restaurants and the likes of buildings, and they were all run down, and I took the task on to spend some time with him to renovate all of these places. I says, Dad, we're going to clean up all the places, and we're going to, and that's where we started. We had a lot of fun doing that. But when the places were all completed, we then said, what are we going to do with them? They were too big to rent out, so I decided that what I'm going to do, because I'm quite knowledgeable in engineering, which was my original profession from school, from college, and what I'm going to do is to outfit all of them with coin laundromats. That I can do this myself. This is something that you and I can do ourselves. So we went into digging holes, trenches, and outfitted the stores with laundromats as a part of the process in the period in which he and I were having a lot of fun in doing that. But while in the laundromat, there was a lady right next to our store on Market and King Street, Miss Robinson, Walter Robinson's mom, and she had a lot of kids, and I can't think of his name, a very good friend of my dad worked at the airport, another Robinson. She came to our wash house just about every morning washing the clothes from the house, but she had a little shop right on the side of us. And the complaint was how she never got paid, every time from buying numbers. And I kept saying, Ms. Robinson, why don't you stop? I mean, that seemed to be the logical thing. But she said to me that she would, but she continued to play, and the same complaints kept coming on. So I just politely said to her one day, you know what, Ms. Robinson, for you and the other 3 ladies, when you all want to buy numbers, you go right to my cashier there and give her the money. And if you win, I will pay it. All right? Because it makes no sense in you just complaining every day that you won and you can't get paid. And I would have left that wash house because I continually moving around and frequently traveling, going back to the U.S. and back and forth. And I would have come back home and saw the amount of people to the window. Instead of buying tokens for the machine, they were buying numbers. Because Ms. Robinson started to tell everybody, look, if you buy from here, you get paid from here. You don't have to look for anyone. And then I went out and I contacted my friends in the business at the time, Theophilus Fritz. Percy Menace had just passed several years prior to this. Cecil Gonzalez and the others. And I says, guys, look, what is happening here is a lot of people complaining about the middle people in your business, that is bookies, that they were called at the time, and you need to address this. This is something that is evolving to be something big, because I had at the time 4 locations of laundromats, and every one of my laundromats, people were no longer washing clothes, they were buying numbers. So that's how this whole thing really started. I had not the slightest clue, no inclination at all.
And you weren't throwing the ball.
No one throwing the ball.
But you were paying when people won.
Because at the time, Cecil Gonzalez took the initiative to change the way. You see, the evolution was Percy threw balls in a bag. Cecil Gonzalez came along and Percy and said, hey, and there's a 3 ball that we should play, because Percy and those only threw a 2 ball in a bag. They never threw a 3 ball in a bag. The difference in games, you would have to understand the games. So Cecil Gonzalez started using the Miami numbers for integrity, because there was this question about my number is not in the bag. They took my number out the bag, and you're cheating. But in the days of Percy Munnins, nobody questioned Percy Munnins. He was the master. If what he said was gospel in the number business. He was the great godfather of numbers. Cesar Gonzalez moved it to another level, which we started using numbers outside of the Bahamas. And that brought integrity.
Mr. Flowers, I can remember Stokes, you know.
But again, Stokes was a very
I can remember
prominent.
Stokes, and I can remember Cuba and
Gene Fitzgerald, Gene Toot from the corner as well, yeah.
And
Fat Allen.
yeah, you know, I thought Stokes was pre-Percy.
Yes, they were friends. Stokes started the ball prior to Percy
Remember
taking
the Corona?
over. Yes, the Corona, because the ball was thrown in Cuba in Spanish.
Yeah.
And there was a major concern that if you did not interpret the number in Spanish correctly, they were paying off for the wrong balls here. so there was a lot of things going on in the industry.
But you later computerized what you were doing.
Yes, it made it after the numbers got there, and I addressed my colleagues at the time, Cecil Gonzalez, Theophilus Fritz, Louis Stokes Jr., Preston Stewart in Grand Bahama, because I was not in the business. I addressed those persons who were the major players at the time and brought it to their attention that they need to look at this new platform and a new system, because if this is what's happening, this can easily be computerized. This can easily be, there was no need for me to be dealing with a cash register, putting in numbers that made it complicated at the end of the day to look down a piece of paper, thousands and thousands of numbers to look for a winning number, when a simple processor from the world that I come from in computers don't do that sort of stuff. So I said that, let me put it on a platform. Let me put it in a database. Let me put it so that I can ask a data to look for numbers, find numbers, calculate, and to organize it for me.
From my knowledge of this, and when I look at the penal code, the legislation with respect to gaming in the Bahamas, it seems to me that once it became computerized, then the illegality came out of it. Because the book says that you must throw the ball, or you must have evidence that a ball was involved. That is what the penal code said. So by computerizing this, you moved it beyond the illegal aspect of the game.
Well, it was moved out of the reach of what was necessary to file a charge against you. It moved it out of the reach of charges because you needed to have evidence of a game, and you need paraphernalias of a game. And when we moved it to a platform and put it into cyberspace, it now left nothing here that we physically handle in reference to the games. But if the argument wanted to be had for many years, it could have been challenged. But you know, we came with a stigma stamped on us as the number boys, and that transcends reality as it relates to technology.
Mr. Flowers, I see it differently, you know. On this program, we always talk about the informal economy and the formal economy. What I see you having done was created an industry which was part of the informal economy, and now it has been formalized. From the point of view, you pay taxes, you pay national insurance, you pay all of the requirements of business. All right? And I think and it is my view that there are more instances like that where people can come from the informal economy to the formal economy. In essence, you've taken it to another level.
Yes, we have, but if we most of this has been transcend in the light of legality. There was a struggle to prove that what we were doing, whether it was legal or not,
was legitimate.
Well,
make it legitimate.
They used the term legal and illegal. So certainly that struggle was the road in which this whole thing took. The numbers is illegal, therefore the government should stop it, should close it down, and the process now must be to legalize it if it is to go forward. The government made a choice as to how it saw this whole thing to evolve, and it turned into a nightmare.
Let's take a break here, and when we return, we want to talk about that platform that was created, because that is the reason why I believe that you were chosen the Business Person of the Year for 2015, the creation of the platform. We take this break here, and we'll come right back.